Here's a question for you. What is it like living in China for an average Chinese family? And I would say it's near enough the same as anywhere in the world, but it does have unique characteristics. An average family, the parents would go to work. They would come home maybe 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. The kids would go to school. They would come home, you would say, in the early evening, maybe 6, 7, 8 at night. So what are the differences, you would say, about living in China and living, let's just give the other style of the United States of America? In America, you wake up maybe 6 o'clock in the morning, take a shower, have some breakfast, go to work. Come home, maybe like you may finish work at 5 or 6, maybe overtime. You would come home, get home at, let's say, 7:30, 8 o'clock, have dinner, watch some TV, and then come the weekend, you would do the normal daily chores of, like, say, or the weekly chores, and then shopping, and maybe having a nice meal or do something a little bit different on the weekend, working a normal 9 to 5. In China, you would say it may be the same, but the hours, I can guess, are longer. You've heard of something called 996, which means 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Even though international labor law, this is illegal. In China, you can work no longer than 44 hours per week, but a lot of people do the 72-hour week, which includes the Saturday, and Sunday is your day off. In Asia in general, you don't usually get the whole weekend. A lot of people have one day off per week. I worked for some big companies before when I was a DJ, when I was young and when I was in Asia. I used to only have one day off per week. It's fine. You sort of get used to it. So in China, you would say one of the differences is that you would work longer hours. And when it does come to a national day, let's say Labor Day. Labor Day in China is May the 1st. Labor Day in the United States is like the last weekend in August. I think that's correct. But in China, you would have to work the whole weekend before, or maybe you'd have to work, let's say you work 6 days a week, you would have to work the Sunday as well to make up for the day that you're going to take off. So do you get a day off? The answer, no, it's just a movement of your schedule. So you still work the same hours, even though that's totally illegal according to the ILO, the International Labour Organization. It's sort of like normal, and the government don't really intervene. There is an International Labour Organization in Shanghai and in Hong Kong, and many companies, many people do over the hours. Many people do sue their company through the ILO, but it's not advertised for the company. Basically, it's cheaper to do it that way, to get caught and fined, rather than just keep the legal hours of 44 hours per week. But one thing I would say that the Chinese, and the same as any other country in the world, is that you would say, oh my God, the government is awful. In China, it's less discreet. You may say it with friends in a closed space with only people that agree with you, and you wouldn't try to convince people otherwise. In America, it would be more open, and you may say this in a bar, having a drink with your friends by the counter, and some other people may join in and say, yeah, God, this Republican Party is a load of BS, or the Democrat Party is BS. I don't like Joe Biden. I don't like Donald Trump. In China, I'm sure they do exactly the same. That many people, but it wouldn't be at a bar. They would possibly be more in just a private group of people who don't like the government, who can't stand Xi Jinping, but they wouldn't do it in public because they get themselves into trouble. And when they do these spectacular things in China and say these amazing outcomes. We have alleviated poverty, absolute poverty. Like most people, they go, yeah, okay, we believe you. And that's in a sarcastic way. They just accept it and move on. Like most people in the world, you just want to have peace, stability, income, security, and a bit of extra money to have some excitement in life, like going on a really nice holiday. So there's not many differences. Now, if you do work overseas, you just have to accept how it is. Again, before I started traveling, when I was in university, for example, I used to do, or in summer holidays, I used to go to work, and I used to work 5 days a week, and it used to work about 8 or 9 hours. And then Saturday and Sunday was free. Fantastic, great, brilliant. In China, it's just 6 days, and you may work longer, and it's sort of accepted. The thing is, if you don't, and you, with your work colleagues, if you say, well, that's it, I've done my 8 hours, bye-bye, and your work colleagues would actually stay there for 12 hours, you sort of like, you would lose the respect. And the boss is very happy with this because, well, he's getting free labor, making more money for himself, and he is the person who probably only does about 40 hours per week. And, well, free labor, more goods, fantastic. It's not slave labor, it's sort of like, well, people do it, so I will do the same. And it really does need a change. A happy workforce is a better workforce. So what would be some of the latest claims made in China and promoted through the Chinese government? They are saying, this is one which I found, in 2025, which is only next year, you can purchase a flying car. And let me just show you what this flying car consists of. I can't work out, and I'd like you to leave a comment in the section below, or the comment section below, whether this is a CGI, or is it just computer generated, or is this a prototype? So these drone passenger ships, could you call them? Yep, they do exist. I think they're in Dubai as some kind of taxi. Not too sure about that. And the claims go a bit further, that the Chinese would say by the time 2030 comes, they would have a flying space aircraft carrier. Now, definitely this next picture, or this next video, is a CGI. So what other things may Chinese people hate about their government, but they don't really speak about? We can only presume. I do have friends in Shanghai, and occasionally when we do chat on secure messaging services like Telegram, we would talk about places like this. This place here is Xinjiang. Now, for years and years, they talked about genocide, slave labor, the forcing women to have more children, or the opposite, to be all sterilized, etc., because it's a Muslim area. And they would send many people to go and investigate. But this is the whole thing. What I've shown you is a map. Let me show you a map of where the concentration of the re-educational camps are. The Chinese government are actually saying what happened like 10 years ago, maybe more than that. There was the people who like to cause upset to the world, like you could say Hamas or Hezbollah or ISIS, things like that. And one of their areas where they were hiding was in this northwestern part of China. And they basically kicked people out. And of course, they put people in prison, being that they're terrorist organizations. This extended, and again, let me show you a picture of one guy. He's a South African guy who's been to Xinjiang, and he's been to the city center, and he said everything's fine here, there's no genocide, etc., etc. The thing is, these people who do go there to report, they never go to the actual area of where these prison camps are, and they do exist. Here's a map. And what they have also very cleverly done, the Chinese government, is to manipulate people to go to Xinjiang to go and see cultural diversity. Two places in particular. One would be Kashgar, which is a very traditional town, and it's a mixture of Chinese Han people and also Muslim people. And then we get all the stories about whether they are committing what we talked about earlier, and are they destroying temples and mosques, well, mosques in particular. And these people who are near enough paid to go to this area would never go and visit and say, there's no genocide. Well, go to the actual map and show us. Yeah? You and I, we can't just hop on a plane. Well, I can because I'm very close, but let's say you live in America, 12 hours away from this place, then traveling there in a land where you don't know and saying, I want to go to the camps. People have, but the thing is, these journalists have always been, well, saying, no, you can't go there. No, you can't go, stop. But anywhere else where the other tourists are allowed to go. So you would see lots of videos on YouTube and Chinese propaganda. And if you go to Xinjiang, yeah, you probably have a lovely time to go and see the history, for example, some dancing in the streets. The list goes on and on. And this is what the people in China, you would say, would dislike about their government. They possibly know what's going on, but it's too much hassle to get involved in it. And if you do get too much involved, well, you may end up in this re-education camp, not necessarily in Xinjiang, but maybe in another place like the southwest of China, Yunnan, which is huge and quite easy to hide what they don't want people to see. But here's the thing, are people actually happy? Are people in China proud to be Chinese? But perhaps they don't want to live there. I'm very proud to be British, but I don't want to live there. Why? The weather is one thing. It just seems to be always cold and sort of wet, and very few sunny or warmer days would be one thing. I always wanted to travel, but travel is expensive. So working in different countries is, well, the solution, the problem is solved in that way. I could imagine many people don't want to live in the United States of America, but they're very proud to live in the USA or to be an American citizen. In China, yes, I'm sure they're very happy and they love their country. They like the history of it, their food, the spectacular things that you can see and do. And it's all within one country. You don't need to go to another country. But what they don't like is sort of like the dictatorship of the government. And they don't have that, you could say, democracy. And they may even be jealous of the West. And what you see on Chinese social media is, and from the government, saying everything is wonderful. And in general, people's life, they go to university, they got a job, they got an apartment, they got a car, they got their 2.4 kids, etc. And their life is okay. The only thing is, don't interact with the CCP. Don't criticize it out loud. But I am sure that, and I know because I do this with some of my friends in Shanghai, obviously I can't name them, and more so in my friends in Hong Kong, where they have, you would say, more freedom, but the national security law doesn't give them this freedom anymore. And when I do go to Hong Kong and I hang out with my friends, we would go to a bar where we know it is safe to talk about it. Or we would just do this, let's say, at home in a closed private area. But again, in America, you can do it anywhere. I can quite freely say, I don't like King Charles. I think Joe Biden is... I really want to use a bad word, but anyhow. But in China, you can't say this out loud. You can think it, that freedom of thinking, I presume, but you can't actually say it out loud. The police basically would catch you, there'd be some snitches, and you would get a knock at the door, which I repeated at 4 o'clock in the morning. And so you just accept it. There's limited choice. Your family is all there. You're thinking about your kids' education. You say anything bad, hey, you're going to have some problems, and you just sort of like get on with it. There are, on the other hand, some people, just like in the United States of America, nationalists, and would be very proud of the latest Huawei phone, because the sanctions against China, but they still be able to make a chip. But what they shouldn't do, and Huawei is linked to the government, obviously, in so many different ways, is advertise it as the best iPhone or the best mobile phone, then say it's better than the iPhone 15, which is a complete load of BS, because some of the teardowns came out the same. It's the same as a iPhone from 2019, for example. But the nationalists said, no, absolute nonsense. It's much better camera, better battery. And it all just comes down to individual choices. Now, I know some people, break time. I just got my lunch, so hence that I sort of got like delayed over this. Yeah. Oh, hold on. Ooh, I think that's Anna. I think it's from Frozen. I'm sort of lost what I was saying, and I think you get the general gist of this. If the CCP, which I've mentioned on videos before, was more honest and more open, so if there was something, or let's say COVID-19, now, was America transparent, or England transparent, or France was transparent about the cases? I think in general, yes. Was China? It sort of like doesn't make sense logically that firstly, COVID came from Wuhan, it came from a leak from the lab. China would blame it onto other people, and it's something that you don't talk about with Chinese people. You can say, have you had COVID? How many injections have you had, etc. But you won't talk about the origins of it. So with that, they sort of like, it felt like the Chinese government, who does control the media, hence it's called the state media, actually said, all the numbers are really low, but they're just sort of unbelievable, really unbelievable. And even I watched a video today that one guy was in America and he went to China for when the COVID situation, you could say, in the UK, I think he was British, was sort of out of control. Now, when COVID did happen in the UK, I was here in Cambodia, but I was shouting at the TV and I was saying to Boris, lock the country down, like what China did. Like what this country did. We were on lockdown. No one could leave. No one could enter the country. There were lockdowns in the actual area that you lived in, but not house to house. You could go outside. And the whole thing is, it's sort of, the community started playing badminton outside on the streets where cars used to drive, because there was limited access. And the police basically blocked our area. So you were trapped in that area, but much better than being trapped at home. But hey, this was the first country in May 2022 to have zero, I would repeat, zero COVID. The only one in the world. China didn't. And then when everyone else was getting back to normal in 2022, China was on lockdown and protests start. Again, they were angry with the government and they said enough, and they organized somehow, not with the American help, but just by themselves, to say, down with Xi Jinping, release the lockdown, etc., etc. And the government did, because it was sort of unprecedented in that massive protests that they had, and the government had to listen. But many of the people who did go to those protests and shouting, they sort of have, well, disappeared. I'm going to have my noodles now, but I don't think I've finished. I've got to summarize. Therefore, what do you think? Do you think people are contented living in China and they do have a reasonable life? What has the government actually done for them? Well, there is more freedom than you could say 30 years, 40 years ago. I do actually remember going to China for the very first time way back in 1994. There wasn't any internet in those days. I was based in Bangkok in those days, and I bought a Lonely Planet guide to China. It was actually quite expensive. It was like $10 whole for the book. And the first 200 to 300 pages, it was a massive book, it was really big, was telling you the do's and don'ts. If you do have a girlfriend, that's illegal for a foreigner. Don't hold hands with her. You will be snitched upon. Don't say anything about Chairman Mao. But then it would go through the whole history of the Cultural Revolution or whatever you call it, the good things and more about the bad things. So something even nowadays that people don't talk about unless it's behind closed doors and you're with a group of friends who are not going to rat you out to the police. So things have changed. There is a better train system, there is a better bus system, there is better cities, the better healthcare, but it's not the best, and I think it's got a long way to go. These high-speed trains in China, yeah, fantastic. The train stations, wow, so glamorous. But here's the thing. If you're going to travel, you just want the convenience of getting to a train station, finding a parking space. The train station may be huge, but it can accommodate a lot of people. You just get onto your train and 2, 3, 10 hours later, you're at your destination. The same as an airport, the same in America, the same as in China. So that hasn't improved. The underground system, it's a modern underground system. You could say, if you've ever been to Singapore or Hong Kong, it's near enough the same design, but there aren't enough trains. But the Chinese government or the Department of Transport in China sort of do more of the beautiful train station and would never show videos of how crowded the train is. They would only take videos off peak or weekends or whatever, or even when it's closed there. So the reality is not there with that kind of idea. So it's a lot better. And what China does sometimes is just give people enough not to complain about. In other words, we want the internet. Okay, China has the internet, but they have a firewall. So they can't legally access Facebook. Well, you're not really missing much if you're not there, but you can't access YouTube, which is a great shame, because then you could never watch any of my amazing, fantastically superb 4K edits of excellent things, the best YouTube video in the world. Yeah. They can't, but they can if they have a VPN. A VPN is a virtual private network. You may have heard of it, and if there is restrictions, you can jump over the restrictions using the technology. This actually is illegal in China, and again, I have covered that over on some of my videos. So go to the playlist, go to China, and you will see, oh, I must have about 1,800 videos. Why I don't have all this money from YouTube and only like 400 people watch it, well, I don't know, to be very honest. I'm going to leave it there for today. I'm going to eat my noodles, and I will wish you a happy day. Comments, fantastic. Subscribe, excellent. That keeps the channel going. Likes, brilliant. If you lost your subscription, just click the button again. It's a little bug which has been in YouTube for weeks and weeks, and people would say, oh, YouTube are doing this, whatever. I don't know with it. And just do that. It doesn't take much to press a little click on a button. And I will see you later. Thank you so much for your time. Oh yeah, don't think if you do want to donate to the channel, the links are in the description below. And don't forget to share this video on your social media. But I'm sure this is actually a long video, and I possibly waffled on for over 20 minutes, maybe 25. I don't know. I haven't got to the editing stage of this. Cheerio for now. Thank you so much for your time. Bye-bye.